Well, hello and welcome to the Creating Connections podcast, where I bring voices and perspectives from people who are making a difference for children's learning and development. I'm Rachel Stewart, and I'm passionate about connecting with people to share experiences and learn from each other how we can best support children to thrive. In this series of the podcast, I interview successful leaders in education so you can learn from a diverse range of people what makes a successful leader and how you can take their learnings and apply them to your leadership. Today, I'm introducing you to Kathryn O'Rourke. Kathryn is a seasoned and transformational school leader with a proven track record of driving strategic renewal in educational environments. As Assistant Principal at Hunter Christian School, Kathryn leads both primary and secondary departments and the Learning Discovery or Inclusive Education team. This role positions her at the centre of school-wide change and cultural transformation. Together during this interview, we discuss her passion for supporting students, as well as her journey into education, from running a business alongside her husband to juggling being a parent and becoming a leader of strategic cultural renewal across the school. So I hope you enjoy this really insightful interview with Kathryn O'Rourke on the podcast today. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It's really nice to be able to have a conversation with you about your journey into education, beginning, I guess, with teaching in business, in the business field first, and then moving into education, and now as acting principal, assistant principal of Hunter Christian School. So perhaps you can start by sharing where your journey began. What sort of career pathway did you start with that has now led you with all these different skills to be in the position that you're in now?
Well, my business journey and my education journey came at slightly separate times, but they've dovetailed nicely. So I actually started out training as an educator, as a teacher, and with a humanities economics background, and went into teaching. And I taught for a number of years in the humanities field, and that was the point where I moved to Newcastle. And then at the point at when I had my babies, we also established a business, and that my husband primarily runs in allied health, and that was a very innovative uh, untested model that we established. And so we did all that at a very intense time in our life. So that's when I got my practical business skills training, as we learned to market and find those niches. And as we learned about building a client-based model that was very different to what had happened in his field before. So we established that, and then because of that, we needed my income to be present also across that time. And so then I went back into education, and what I did was looked at the possibility of university teaching or school teaching, and I loved the life and energy in schools and working with young people. And so I had the choice at that fork in the road moment, and then went back into schooling, and I'd looked at other careers. I really looked at very, very, very radical career change at that point, but something kept calling me back to schools. And so what that has enabled me to do is this crazy journey of, I guess, leadership and the pathway to leadership, which has looked quite different for me. And what has happened there is we've been able to, run a high school, and then more recently run a P to 12 school. So yeah, pretty awesome.
Wow, I can detect a slight accent with you. Whereabouts are you originally from?
Well, this is quite amusing. People always ask me about my accent, and I think they might expect some exotic story, but I actually grew up in Sydney, and then I've moved to Newcastle in more recent times. Um, so it's funny because I was having a chat with students during the week, and they're like, "Where are you from, Miss? You speak." And they were trying to tell me I sounded like Taylor Swift, and then another student said I sounded a little bit more like Margot Robbie, and I'm like, um, Disappointingly, I
Nice
don't
combination.
sound like any of those. But yeah, no, I grew up in Sydney, and so maybe it's a Sydney accent
Oh, maybe. Isn't that
or a,
interesting?
or a hybrid of my many years here, and potentially a small amount of my playground duty voice.
Yes.
Um,
The city accent and the country accent.
yeah.
Well, that sounds really interesting, the journey that you've taken. And you mentioned that it was a very intense process trying to start a business, which I can only imagine is quite challenging in itself when you
Mm.
have a young family. How did you actually juggle that during that time and support your husband's vision as well at the same time? Your vision.
Yeah, look, it feels like forever ago. And then I look back at my children and I think, oh, such precious moments they were of, the intensity of, lots of cuddles and, helping them learn the practical things of life. I think the way we made it work was, both of us in part-time work. So we had very minimal income, and it was very simple living. It was not fancy living. It was pretty bunkered down and living with the support of family and friends. I mean, not financially, but just, our worlds were probably small and we did work and the business, my employment, and the little people. And that was how we made it work. And it was around that time. I mean, I've always been obsessed with cooking and food, but we would do simple things like making a lot of our own things and just I guess appreciating the moment of simplicity. It didn't feel simple at the time, but when I look back, it was simple, and it was just about being together. And yeah, I didn't have a long range view at that point about life. It was just we're going to do the here and now. We'll see what emerges. We'll see if the business survives. We'll see if this calling back into education has legs. And it did. So here we are. But it, yeah, it did. We did a lot of learning.
Yeah, I can imagine sort of if you look back now, all the different skills that you learn along the way, you sort of don't realize that you are learning those things at the time because you're basically just trying to work out how to make things work as a parent,
Mm.
as a wife, as all the different hats that you have to wear.
Yeah.
And yeah, really just living in the moment and making certain sacrifices to make the business work and the
Yeah.
family work and all of those things that I guess women of our generation are willing to do that. Especially, once you have a family, you know that there are sacrifices that you have to make, and there's
Yeah.
a lot of juggling that you have to do. So, how do you think that your experience, both as a parent of young children and as an entrepreneur, uh, a business owner, how do you think those skills that you have learned in those roles has helped you in your role now?
Well, you asked tough and good questions. I think it, I learned probably across that period that I was a creative person. And I don't know that I'd had that revelation until that time, that I was resourceful and creative and I could problem solve quite well. And um, yeah, so whenever we would have a conundrum that we faced personally or professionally across that time, I retained a positivity and a resilience. Like, well, there will be a way forward, even if we don't know what it is yet. And I definitely carry that. I consider the work that I do now, so much of it is this jigsaw of shuffling things around so that you can look at something a different way or find what the solutions are lying underneath. And it was a good proving ground for that kind of work. And now I do that at a greater scale. But you're also still doing it you're doing it at greater scale in your employment, but you're also in leadership, but you're also doing it because you're still navigating parenting and family and life and the business. And so you're just dealing with them at a broader level. But yeah, I think I was a powerful personal learning about my own capacity for creativity and passion for that. And I guess my belief in the importance of applied business, that while I was teaching about business, I was then able to explore whether I authentically believed it. And I genuinely did. And so I was able to go back into the classrooms down the track with a really strong sense of passion and purpose when I would engage with young people about business and entrepreneurship and creating opportunities for them to develop businesses and their own creativity.
Yeah. Wow, there's so much I've just learned about you in just that one question. Very creative, very resilient, and very much not scared to take risks.
Mhm.
So, do you feel that the role that you're in now is basically, I suppose, custom made for you in that sense because you have to draw on all of those different skills? And how does creativity come into a leadership role?
I do feel like this role has a really custom-made element for me, and it does allow me to flourish day to day. And I think, people think you're crazy sometimes when you want to do these senior leadership roles in schools, but it can be really joyous and fulfilling work. And there can be just so many fun moments. And I think I have learned how to seek them out. And this role particularly allows me some of that. I've learned to cultivate joy in my work. And I have learned, and I have in a position which is very uniquely suited to my capabilities and interests. And so I can flourish, which then does enable me to bring more of my creative and strategic self. And, I've never been afraid to do things my own way, and I still do that. And I think earlier on in my life, I would have used my creativity more for my family and, the extension of my my downtime. And then I learned to apply it professionally with innovation and creativity events and a festival for young people, sort of an entrepreneurial event for all students, from the little ones right up to the larger grown-up ones. And then I've learned more recently to apply my creativity strategically and creatively also solve problems. So, you know, in my ignorance early on, I would not have imagined the importance of creativity and strategic work. And, people go about strategic work in such different ways. But for me, the joy of ideating and going, how can we do schooling differently? And also feeling that incredible privilege that we carry around helping our young people prepare for a very complex world where we're going to have to go about schooling differently. So therefore, let's come at those conversations from different angles and apply everything we have, our best selves, to designing things that are going to be powerful for all students. So there's some of my learnings.
And how do you go about doing that in your school in terms of any sort of strategies or frameworks that you use? Do you use the design thinking, IDEO strategies, or is it something that you feel comes naturally to you as a creative person and creative thinker, creative and critical thinker,
Mm,
because you need to be both really as a strategic leader?
mm.
How do you think that, or how do you actually bring your skills, but also any frameworks that you use into designing new ways to achieve what you want to with your students?
I think we haven't used a framework so much, although they are super helpful. I do passionately believe that putting the right people in the right roles and then creating the space for them to do good work is enormously important for setting the platform for high quality organizational thinking. So we've had periods where we've re-established leadership structures and senior leadership teams, and the big thing about that has been that particular piece of work around the right people in the right roles, and then that role clarity, and then when you've got the right people in those conversations, and you create space and you cast the vision and go, we need to rework some of the things here and look at how we can improve, whether it's a small process or whether it's something big picture in terms of organizational design, then those people, amazing people, come together and they do great work. And then you're coaching and guiding and then working out what the next steps are. So that's probably the framework we've used. And then the principal and I work together. We're very, strengths complementary. So we work, he'll take some of that and I'll take others of those conversations and meetings and push forward in slightly different manner and then bring those things together so that we can, and then and I guess we both like to move at quite a fast pace. And that's always a tension in schools, but making sure that we're getting thinking from different places so that we're testing the thinking. But yeah, basically a framework is establishing good people and bringing them together and magic happens.
Yeah. And you've mentioned in a past conversation that we've had about organizational complexity and how you like to sink your teeth into that and really work out solutions and it sounds like you've got that skill to bring the right people together. So can you share a little bit more about that and how you've managed to turn things around in your school?
I think any organization's complex, and I think schooling in se the sector's complex. Each organization ecosystem is complex, and every story represented, whether it be staff, student, or parent, there's complexity there. So it is a very unique space that we operate in, and so much of the learning on that happens on the job. And mind you, as you reflected before, family life and business life is an awfully good teacher for those things as well. Um, I think I have learnt in the past that organizational complexity can feel like it's insurmountable and that it is that elephant sort of over there that you can get to the easier, more practical things and you can get to the quick wins, but here's the stuff that we really need to be working on and you can push that aside and procrastinate about that. But I have learnt that the only way to tackle that elephant is one bite at a time, and you've got to be able to be proactive and create space when things are getting tricky. You must create space to work out a strategy ahead of time. I've had those seasons when I've worked in a contingency manner all day, every day, and it's so unsatisfying and nobody is satisfied because the people around you are aware you're not getting to the really the important work. They're aware that you're getting to those other maybe side pieces of work, and then everyone's getting frustrated because we're not moving forward. We're just kind of circling around. And so being proactive, working out a strategy, getting the right projects and teams together. I always say we're playing for the long game, and a school renewal, any business renewal is, 5 years, 7 years, 8 years, whatever it looks like. It feels interminable while you're in it, but it is about establishing those. It's about establishing an approach that's going to work in your context, that's authentic and enables you to lead as you should be leading, not the way people think you should be leading, but the way that you can bring your best self. And then over time, sometimes it's that you are saying to people, you might not be quite the right people on the journey with us right now, or reestablishing processes and structures. And there's lots of pain in those conversations. There's pain when you're holding them, and there's pain for the people hearing them. Um, you really have to hold the line in those moments. And sometimes you just have a couple of really trusted people that you are downloading and working it through with. And, there's, look, I could talk all year about this particular piece of my work, but you've got to celebrate the wins as you go, and you've got to encourage yourself day to day when you're doing that complexity work and it feels like there's no progress. You've got to find the little things, whether it's something even not related to that work. It might be the joy of a class that you've taught, or a parent interaction that has been incredibly meaningful to them or to me. It's those things that get you through the organizational change parts, and just that constantly, seeing where we're headed, holding the line, and the good people around you again, that gets you through. And when you look back, it's astonishing. You go, wow, we've really managed to take this forward.
That's definitely the entrepreneur coming out in you, because obviously when you're trying to establish a business, you have to have so much faith and self-belief that it's going to work. Otherwise, you would just give up. And yeah, really, I can hear the passion in your voice when you're talking about it. So, my question is, I'd like to know how you support yourself or how you maintain that self-belief. And is there anything that you do particularly to self-manage and make sure that you're taken care of as well by yourself?
Um, it's it's something I haven't always done well, I would say. Sometimes I have been through that kind of work and been pretty ragged at the end. And, it's something that, because our business is in a health related field and it is all about well-being. Um, it's enormously challenging to me because, as we know, the great demands on senior school leaders, they only grow. And sometimes I've been through seasons where I have attempted to like have a health goal every week or a well-being goal, and I've attempted to try and just do one thing for myself every day that is recharging and replenishing. And then I find that self-belief and that commitment to the cause is able to, be reinforced naturally because you've got the emotional energy you need for the emotionally draining work. But I think being able to retreat and step back and time away from schooling is enormously important. I think school leaders don't spend enough time outside of education, outside of the sector. And that's probably something that my business brain would encourage school leaders to do more of. We do become we can become institutionalized to a degree because you get bunkered down, whereas actually going and, I mean, obviously going and seeing other educational settings, but then going off into industry or not-for-profits or other spaces where you're going to get fresh ideas and energized throughout these seasons. And so often that encouragement that comes from meeting with other leaders and business people and finding their stories and their, opportunities to build grit and how they've built self-belief and gotten through things, plus the energy and ideas from seeing different spaces and thinking processes, all helps in bringing it back. And sometimes that can be super clarifying. You go, oh, that's really got us on the right track, or we're really going in a good direction, or that really highlights the fact we really need to do a lot more work in this space. And gee, how amazing it is to see XYZ person or industry business doing it this way. What can we learn or adapt from them?
And it's also about staying in touch with what's happening in business
Mm,
and in the world that you're sending your students out to,
mm,
because it's rapidly changing. It's just changing so quickly now. Even as a business owner myself, I'm constantly trying to keep up with the technology and the latest marketing trends and all of those sorts of things, which, is part of the business and part of the process. But as educators, also trying to keep up with, well, how are we actually preparing our students to go out into the world that is so different now? And there are a number of challenges, that young people need to overcome that we never really had to deal with, particularly around their well-being and their mental health and self-belief as well. So, in terms of the challenges that you face as a female leader, can you share a little bit about how, I guess, how the journey has been for you? Do you feel like as a female you've had to prove yourself in any way, or that because you're juggling so many different things, the role tends to be a lot more challenging? Can you share a little bit more about how you feel as a female leader? Because I know that
mm.
there'll be a few female teachers and potential future leaders who might be listening. How would you encourage them to not view the journey as a negative, but as an opportunity to explore as a woman, even though, there's so many different things that we need to be doing as well, or that we potentially have to face that men don't necessarily need to?
There's so much in that question. I think
I know
um,
my questions are very long. I'm sorry. It's just my brain. That's just how my brain
no,
works.
I appreciate it. That's how my brain works too. I'm always saying to people, I'm so sorry, my brain's a mind map. Um,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I think firstly, nothing is wasted in life. I genuinely believe that. And um, I I do feel that, the lessons I learn in my parenting or business or in community more broadly come back and benefit from my work in schools, my leadership, and vice versa. I think inevitably there are demands on women that probably our male colleagues don't face. And I've looked at times with envy on sometimes some of those colleagues who've, been able to more easily able to navigate, postgraduate study or, opportunities they've been able to take a hold of to go and speak at conferences or, develop parts of their work, their leadership work, uh, whereas I've had to be a little bit more bunkered down because I can't miss this moment with my children while I'm working and developing and growing other people's children. And so you've got that moral weight, I think, particularly that women carry. And so I think about that a lot. And I think also, as you've referenced, we've been through a significant period of change in our organization, and we're, on the encouraging, growing, flourishing part of that journey, which is so exciting. But my principal would say that my journey, like to use his words rather than my own on this one, that my journey has been harder. Perhaps initially for staff to accept my leadership, especially because I was going back and leading people. I was a first year out in that school, and then I came back to run the high school years later. And like, I totally understand how people might have felt about that. I'm with them on that. But at the end of the day, that was the job I was given. And, and we had a lot of work to do. We had to get in the trenches and do really heavy lifting on school renewal and making schooling fit for purpose for our young people. And so there were lots of hard conversations and times. And yeah, the learning about I think for our organization, learning about female leadership and the way that it works, it looks different, and we need to create space for that. I
Mm,
also think that organizations, as they mature and have more space for female voice, then there are things like if you have that you've only got a male voice, or you have a particular cultural voice, or people who've grown up in a particular area, you're missing out on that the joy of different ways of going about things. And um, I would hope that I would always be a people-orientated leader, an EQ savvy kind of leader. And um, I'm not that number crunching, hard-nosed, let's get the structures and things and get them in place, and we'll work out the people stuff later. I'm like, the people are the core of what I'm doing here day to day in terms of my priorities. And I think some of that thinking coming through and changing the way that teams work, changing the way that we speak to one another and the way that we enable and release people. I think sometimes a female lens on that is incredibly important. And also, I'm really passionate about those women coming along, emerging as leaders in our organization. I'm really passionate about finding them, creating voice for them, creating opportunities for them. And we're seeing so many of those women flourish in our organization. And yeah, I think there are lots of people that could have done that work, but I think a female particularly has been important in that emerging female voice in our school.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Um, it's just got me thinking about what is it about female leadership that is different? Because I know myself, I've been exploring how can I be more female led in my own work
Mm,
instead of feeling as a woman that I need to be so structured and
mm,
work like a man. Um, and I've just been really fascinated with that whole process of being more led by my intuition in what I
mm,
need to do in my work and to be more in touch with what it is that I need to do next and to be led by my own influence more than external influences. Would you say
mm.
that that is more a female way of being? Or, and is that how you approach female leadership? Or are there other ways that females do things differently? We obviously think differently and can see from a different lens and perspective. But are there other qualities that females have, do you believe, as leaders that are not necessarily being utilized as much as they could be?
Yes, I do. I think the intuition part of it is very important. And in this age where we talk data all the time, like I'm passionate about data, and we're massively upping our ability to use data day to day, analyze it effectively, and, make good decisions based on that. I think data and intuition together should be an important part of the conversation. I think being able to read a room, I think it can be. It's not always, definitely not always. There are plenty of men who do an amazing job at reading the room, and women who can maybe struggle in that space. But I think if you were talking patterns or trends, you would see that women find it easier to read the room and to see what lies beneath, or some of the subtlety and the nuances. And that enables us to respond quickly. Maybe it's to an individual who is just been really distressed by something that happened in a meeting, and the ability to go quickly to that person and go, hey, what's going on? How can I help? Or, just seeing, discontent emerging, or, just those trends, or that your temperature testing always in leadership, as you know. And I think women can be very good at quickly testing the temperature of something, and then seeing what people may need, and then responding accordingly, or putting the right people in if it's not your. I mean, I think the temptation can be, as a female leader, of having to do too much yourself and not delegating enough, but being wise enough to know that you can see and identify something, but it doesn't mean it's your problem or thing to solve, but actually using the broad network of team and people to respond and to move forward. So yeah, I think there's some of the things we do well. And I actually think that the women I work with and have known in leadership have been very good at being open and honest about how they're going, leading authentically, and also having those tougher conversations. I think it happens differently to the way that my male colleagues will do that. But I think I've developed my own style in that, and I think that's a very important part of the work. And yeah, so being able to do that without feeling the pressure of doing it the way that it might have traditionally been done in my organization, I think has been important. Yeah, for the work we've needed to do. And again, back to organizational complexity, I think that that's important for that kind of work.
Yeah. It's that nurturing and emotional intelligence that can be a natural part of a female's approach, but not always. And I guess it takes someone who has those skills really to be able to do the job and to be in a leadership role. Um, and I guess in some ways that is a skill that is natural for some people, but can be learned as well along the way and through life experience, really. And the way that you respond and react to different things that are happening and those complexities in the organization that you have to deal with. So, in terms of complexities and challenges, what would you say are some of the greatest challenges that education is facing right now?
Well, I think the schools now have an extraordinary privilege as we have become so central to the makeup of our society. And I mean, they've been influential for, a couple of hundred years or looking back in across history. But that growing role, I guess, as other institutions like the church. I mean, we're in a Christian faith-based school environment, so our church connection is very important, and that part of our work is very much up front. But um, more broadly in society, that the roles of church and state and community has shifted so much, and schools are now doing a lot of the work that traditionally might have been shouldered by faith-based communities, Christian communities. And so I guess we are dealing and grappling with the complexity, and it's coming into our little worlds day to day in school. And we have to navigate it day to day, but we're also got to be really future focused and go, how are we going to address these sort of things more proactively in the future, but also how are we going to be preparing our families and our young people for what lies ahead. But equally, when you look at, like, say, it might be youth crime or, young people becoming disenfranchised from school, schools are playing a very significant role in being able to prevent young people from falling through the cracks. And yeah, we're just seeing that weight on schools. And so I think I'm just trying to think back to your original question, Rachel. But yeah, so we have to deal with the external moral purpose and the purpose of helping out with society and its challenges, but also deal with the arising challenges in our own community. So steer me back in where you wanted me to head with that. I got
Just
maybe in a
challenges.
rabbit hole there.
Yeah, the main challenges in education. So, in terms of how you manage that, how closely do you work with families to be able to work as a team? Because we know a lot of the challenges that are happening are not just at school, but in the home and in the community and as well as the online community, which is causing all sorts of challenges for young people. How do you work more closely with families and help them understand that it is actually a teamwork approach to be able to support students?
Well, I think the first part of working with families is hearing their stories.
Yeah.
I said that very clearly at the start of this year to both our primary department parents and our secondary department parents. I think to be able to hear another human story is an immense privilege. And so you start by giving a voice to to everybody in the room, and knowing that, it's not just that we are entrusted with their child, but we are entrusted with their family story, and we have a part to play in the much bigger part of, they're with us for however many years, but for the fullness of their life, we're going to be hoping to sow and develop things in them that have great value. And but we can't do that alone, because what we always uncover when we talk with parents is just so much richness around the child, and their development and what they present like at home, and do they present the same? Is it polar opposites? Do they love school? What do they love? What lights them up that they're not showing us? What is it in the family story that we're missing? When we see complex behaviors emerging, we want to be able to have tough conversations. So we just want to set the scene early for strong relationship, and giving dignity to, to all parties. And I really would always hope that our parents can feel confident to bring whatever their hopes and dreams and concerns are. But it's always our job to create the space for that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that partnership is enormously important to us in my school setting. I mean, all school settings, but at Hunter Christian, where I work, we're really always trying to strengthen the relationships with our parents and find ways to bring them in and get to know them, and so that we can do better work day to day when their young people are in our care.
Can you share some of the ways that you do create space for families to be able to share their family story and their parent knowledge of their child? Because I know there's a lot of families who may be hesitant to come into the school,
Mm.
and maybe hesitant also to share their stories because, a lot of families have difficult, complex situations that are happening. So how do you create that space in your school community for parents to feel safe to be able to share their story?
I think one of the things that we're doing well is having time in the week where parents are welcome on site. For instance, our Friday morning chapels, having parents be able to just come and go as they please, or if it's a little assembly, for them to, it's not necessarily a formal invite, but they're welcome to be there, and just catch us doing our work day to day for starters, and observe it, and feel like they might be able to trust us with that work. And I guess they're catching then our philosophy and the way we go about things. They're seeing the way that we treat their children, and what we value. So yeah, creating as many opportunities for parents to be on site, I think is important. We're big on community events. Our Mother's Day event we had last week is just enormous. Like, I don't think we had 600 registrations. I mean, we're
Wow.
only a 350 school, but we get such amazing attendance at those things, because um, parents want to be they want to be with us on this journey, and if we don't invite them in, then they can't be on the journey. But equally, we're aware that sometimes it's not easy for parents to get in, workplace complexity, or they might be working remotely. I was talking with a parent this morning that's working in Northern Australia, and we were chatting about some things today. We create a lot more online spaces sometimes. So it might be parent conferences. We will do a mix of online and in person. We also would encourage our older students to be a part of those. So that round table approach is important to us. And I think sometimes it's parent surveys, or making sure that people have someone they know that they could go to if they've got a problem or just need a practical solution. We've also been very strategic in making sure that our office staff are not, just they're just supporting in the background, but they have a central role. We refer to them as our family engagement team. They're central to that liaising and that bridge between home and school, so that any parent knows at any time they can bring their concern to that port of call, and a family engagement team member will find the right person for them. And that then, because we've worked hard on our systems and processes, that will get put in the right portfolio, and then that someone will be available to help. And so, yeah, they're just a few of the ways, and they're mostly simple ways, but I think all of the things you do together creates the space and voice for parents.
Yeah, I like how you use the word concerns, raising concerns rather than complaints, because as we know as parents, we do have concerns about our children on the odd occasion and how we can support them through their schooling. So it sounds like your families are so excited about being part of the community. How do you support your staff then to interact with parents? Because I know there are some staff do have the skills naturally to interact with parents, but others may sometimes shy away from it and perhaps have some anxieties around it. So how do you support your staff to do that?
I think I think what I've just said around processes, structures, and then the right people in the right roles, all of that work has led to helping people to know where they fit in the organization and what types of conversations they're expected to have, and then where they are able to get support, where they're able to upline. Um, and so we've done a lot of work around our classroom teachers being, I guess, released to have the mainline conversations with parents, but with our full support, and knowing that we are there when they need to consult or when we need to come in on those meetings. And um, yeah, so having both the well-being pathways. If a parent has a pastoral care thing that they need to bring to us, a wellbeing concern or an academic concern, it might be just that baseline classroom teacher or subject teacher level, year group, so a pastoral care or year group coordinator, and then the uplines to the wellbeing leads, the academic leads. And so, yeah, there are lots of different ways that parents can have their voice heard. But then equally, we want to make sure that our staff have the ability to both they feel empowered but supported, and we're always doing coaching conversations. So in the early days of a younger teacher getting to experience what it's like to contact a family member about a concern or just a flag, we would provide proactive support, because we know that that can be complex work, getting your words right, and thinking about who's going to be receiving it. Do they have any barriers to receiving that information about cultural or new to community or something that you need to have a greater sensitivity on? But we've really encouraged our staff to get on the phone early,
Mm,
so that parents are not having, really the first port of call is, a high level escalated manner, but let's look for the patterns. Let's be proactive. Let's just flag when there's issues regarding, um, you know, not really engaging with the learning in a particular course, or a student who's really struggling to get to class on time. And we're working with them, we're working out what our strategies are, but then reaching out to the family and going, hey, we're having this issue. Can you shed some light on how we can go about it? But equally, can you support us at home? We've really made great inroads in that area. And I think that's helped us set higher standards as an organisation, because we're all supportive work and reactive.
Ooh, I think we just froze.
Yeah, we did, but you're back, so it's all good.
Yeah. No, well, that sounds like it's great examples of systemic procedures or what's the phrase? It's actually system conditions that can sometimes prevent um, really effective engagement between home and school. So having those procedures in place and the systemized approach where your staff know exactly who to point the parents to and who's the right person to speak to, and it really is a whole school approach in understanding that process and to be able to work effectively.
Mm.
And obviously, in a large school like yours, it is working effectively because you have those systems in place, and parents know that they're going to have their concerns listened to. And that sounds like a fantastic way that you've gone about it. So, where did all of that come from for you? Did you have specific training in family school partnerships, or is that something that has come naturally for you because you have children of your own and who've gone through the schooling process or are still going through, and it's something that has come about through the development of that strategic work and strategic approaches?
I think parent partnership has always been an important part of our school community. However, I think there have been periods when we've done that better than others. And one of the things that I guess our data showed us, our surveying, was that we were good organically at that work, but we needed to develop systems to support that. And we needed to do more training around that. And so I think just more clarity about the work and the need to sometimes circle back to, because you've got new staff coming on board and I mean, that cultural work, it should be all day, every day about sharing how we show up, how we go about things and modeling that to our new staff, new families.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think it wasn't that we went out and did a whole heap of training on it, but we identified it as a strength area, but also an area for greater development. And those two things together have enabled us to have some honest conversations as a community about where we were going really well and where we needed to improve, and that continual conversation around how we take that forward. And we continue to do so. We're never going to say, oh, we've arrived at that. We just want to continue to adapt and strengthen our parent partnerships because they do change over time. The needs change, the generational parent impact around different parenting in different seasons. You do need to go at things in different ways. But our parents are good. They let us know. And, I was talking to a parent the other day. Actually, she was a parent, but now she's a grandparent in our community. And, there's people that are on the journey with you in the long term that believe in you but will also give you that reminder about, oh, where we're not getting it right, or so yeah, you need to have trusted people to speak into the organization and to us as individuals as we go about that work. So yeah, there are probably great, amazing courses that you could do in this space, but that hasn't been the driver in our instance.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like the driver has been basically forming relationships as part of your school culture, which ultimately is going to be effective if you do it right and if you get the systems in place as well. So, I've got one final question for you before we finish up today. I'd love to know what you feel is your greatest achievement as a leader over the past few years, and if you'd like to share that with us before we finish today.
Well, we talk about, feminine perspective, and I have to say, talking about my achievements makes me very uncomfortable.
That's
Um,
why I've asked you.
Thank you for putting me on the spot like that. All those other lovely questions you asked ahead of time. Um, it's my greatest achievement. I think I think becoming I think learning to walk in my leadership so that it is just part of who I am rather than a position or it's something tacked on. And like, I mean, obviously I've always taken it very as a great responsibility, but I think being able to authentically show up at home, be who you are and who you need to be at home, and authentically showing up in the workplace and as a leader, as a teacher, I think takes time because you can get a bit buffeted by other people's expectations and them telling you how you should do your job and your leadership work. And I think I am a strong person and I can hold the line about who I am and how I want to show up. And I've learned to then say to my teams, this is who we are and how we show up. And I've noticed the growth in them across that time. And that's enabling us because we are holding one another to a higher standard. And I hope creating the space for everybody to be authentic, then we are able to do better work together. And we're seeing the momentum really generated in our school because great people are doing great work every day. And, that gives great joy. And so I think that as a leader, you never get the promise that you're going to see the fruit of your work. So I think probably to answer that, I have been able to see the fruit of my work in recent seasons. And that is the most deeply satisfying thing as a leader. And so often now I feel like I just need to get out of the way and let all these other amazing people just take things forward. And then I just, coach and step forward when I need to. But, to be able to see that flourishing in others, students, parents, and families is just been a gift and one that I didn't always know would be there for me. So I'm very grateful day to day and very grateful that I'm working with young people because I never lose sight of the fact that that's this crazy, wonderful privilege.
Yeah, what a fantastic answer off the cuff without any prompts. I think that just having a conversation with you today, we've seen so many of your qualities come through. And as a leader, they're all qualities that are so important. So I've I've felt your warmth, I've felt your strength as a person and as a leader, not just in a school, but in your family as well, and obviously in the community and in your past work as well. And I think that your resilience and all of the qualities that you share and demonstrate to other people obviously are leaving a huge legacy. So fantastic. Amazing to speak to you today. And I am really excited to share this interview because I think that it's not necessarily, I guess, there's not necessarily a scripted list of qualities that people need to have as leaders, but over a lifetime of experience and working with other people and building relationships, they're all of those qualities that have come out through you today. And I think that that's a really great example for future female leaders as well. So thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story.
Thank you, Rachel. It's been such a privilege. And thank you for hearing my story and, yeah, for sharing it with others.
Absolute pleasure. Well, what another inspiring interview in our Leadership in Education series of our Creating Connections podcast. If you enjoyed this interview and would like to learn more from other leaders in education, please click on the subscribe button to receive further podcasts on your feed. If you'd like to be a guest on our podcast, click on the link below to book a meeting with me to learn more about you and your leadership in education. Or if you're listening to this podcast, send an email to rachel@practicallylearning.com.au to express your interest in being on the podcast. If you are a school leader or teacher with aspirations for leadership, but you're challenged with self-doubt, overwhelm, and whether you have what it takes to take that next step, our Connect with Your Mind Mastery Coaching Program can support you to work on your own self-mastery to become the leader you aspire to be. For further information about our coaching and professional learning programs, please visit our website at practicallylearning.com.au or click on one of the links below and visit our podcast for our future series of interviews to support you as the adults who are guiding children on their learning journey. I do hope you enjoy the rest of our episodes on our Creating Connections podcast, and I hope to meet you soon.